Hi, I'm Dr. Ellen Hendrickson, and welcome to episode 25 of The Savvy Psychologist. I'll help you meet life's challenges with evidence-based research, a sympathetic ear, and zero judgment. We'll use the best of psychology to help you be happy, healthy, and most importantly, yourself. Can't take a compliment? Feel like a fake? Convinced you'll be unmasked at any moment? Welcome to the secret circle of high achievers suffering from imposter syndrome. This week, we'll discuss the 3 types of imposter syndrome and the 3 most common ways it develops. Then, on Monday, we'll have an extra bonus episode of The Savvy Psychologist with 9 tips to combat imposter syndrome. So what is it? Imposter syndrome is a pervasive feeling of self-doubt, insecurity, or fraudulence, despite often overwhelming evidence to the contrary. It strikes smart, successful individuals, and it often rears its head after an especially notable accomplishment, like admission to a prestigious university, public acclaim, winning an award, or earning a promotion. Imposter syndrome doesn't discriminate. People of every demographic suffer from feeling like a fraud, though minorities and women are hardest hit. So imposter syndrome comes in 3 flavors. Type number 1 is I'm a fake. The fundamental fear here is being discovered or unmasked. Achievers often feel like they've made it thus far under wraps, but the day will come when their cover is blown. For example, Adelaide is a tenured professor at a prestigious university. She's one of the leading researchers in her field. But recently, Adelaide attended a high-powered meeting. As she was admiring the book-lined, richly paneled room, someone was introduced as an esteemed professor. Adelaide looked around and realized with a start that they meant her. She says, "Internally, I was terrified. I just knew that everyone else at that table knew what they were doing and had earned their place there. I felt like any minute a spotlight would shine on me and I would be asked to leave." But not only accomplished professionals feel the sting. 18-year-old Don graduated high school at the top of his class and is headed off to college in the fall. He was accepted at an Ivy League university and he's terrified. He says, "I'm convinced the admissions department made a mistake. That place is for geniuses, not for people like me. I don't belong there." Type number 2, I got lucky. The second flavor of imposter syndrome attributes achievements to luck. A twist on this is, I'm not smart or talented or gifted, I just work hard. For example, Gerald is an investigative reporter for one of the last standing well-regarded city newspapers. He's cracked several national stories and a line of awards hangs on the wall of his office. But he says, every time a feature story goes to print, I'm convinced it will be the end of my career. I got my other stories through sheer luck. I was just in the right place at the right time. The I just work hard variation is especially common among women. For example, Inez is a software engineer at a well-known tech company. Her reviews are stellar, and she's been promoted twice since she started. But she arrives earlier than anyone else in her otherwise all-male group and stays until the janitor goes home. She says, "I haven't been programming since I was 14 like these other guys. I'm not a born engineer. I put in the hours just to stay afloat." Type number 3. Oh, this old thing? In the movie It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey offers bombshell Violet a compliment. "Hey, you look good. That's some dress you got on there." Violet knows she's rocking it. She twirls her hair. She says, "Oh, this old thing? Why, I only wear it when I don't care how I look," and sashays off, stopping traffic. Violet is being falsely modest, but in imposter syndrome, folks truly cannot take a compliment. In this final version of imposter syndrome, the recipient of an award or recognition discounts the honor. "I only got an A because the class was easy. That race I won wasn't really important. I must have been the only one who applied. I'm not pretty. He's just saying that." So where does all this come from? Here are 3 of the most common ways imposter syndrome develops. Source number 1, you're so smart. The work of Dr. Carol Dweck, professor of psychology at Stanford, sheds light on a common parenting mistake. Well-meaning parents often praise kids with labels like, "You're so smart," or "You're so pretty." These labels, while meant to be complimentary, actually hinder kids. How? They imply that there's nowhere left to grow. You're smart implies that smart is a you've got it or you don't characteristic. Either you're smart or you're not, and there's nothing you can do to alter it. Therefore, whenever kids make a mistake, they question the smart label. If I got a C this once, then maybe I'm not smart after all. Mom must be wrong. As a result, it stifles kids' willingness to try new things for fear they might prove their label wrong. This lays fertile ground for imposter syndrome. Source number 2. One of these things is not like the others. Women, racial minorities, or LGBT individuals may feel like they're living in a high achiever's version of the Sesame Street song, "One of these things is not like the others." Indeed, individuals who don't, quote, match the larger majority culture of their school or company often struggle to feel legitimate. They may feel like they don't belong despite qualifications and accomplishments. So navigating unfamiliar waters without a role model or mentor can exacerbate this kind of imposter syndrome. For instance, being the first in the family to attend college or have a white-collar career is a pioneering achievement, but it can feel like a floundering imitation without an experienced guide. Source number 3, the side effects of meritocracy. High achievers are only high achievers when compared to others. High achievers have been compared to others their whole lives, when earning grades, winning honors, being selected into college, and landing jobs. They often come out on top, which does 2 things. First, they value the process of comparison because they've done well by it. But second, they're extra alert to the process. So awareness of being evaluated and caring deeply about the outcome is an important mindset for success, but when it backfires, it lays a foundation for feeling like a phony. So now, what's a phony feeling high achiever to do? Here are 9 ways to combat imposter syndrome. Tip number 1, know that feeling like a fraud is normal. Imposter syndrome is widespread. It's rampant in any exclusive circle, from high school honor societies to Nobel Prize winners. It's rarely discussed because each person feels he or she is keeping a secret. There's an element of shame and fear of being discovered, so sufferers keep silent. However, whenever someone pipes up, hundreds more breathe a sigh of relief. Tip number 2, remind yourself of what you've accomplished, not what you lack. So academics keep a curriculum vitae, roughly translated as life's work. More than a resume, it's a list of everything they've accomplished. So do the same and read it over from time to time. Read your old letters of recommendation. If you've been given an award, read the inscription. You don't just look good on paper. You've accomplished each and every achievement on that paper. Tip number 3, tell a fan. Disclose your feelings to a trusted friend, your favorite teacher, or close colleague. Hopefully, you'll come away with a pep talk to bolster your spirits. Warning though, change the subject if your fan simply tells you to stop feeling insecure. If you could stop, you would have already. Tip number 4, seek out a mentor. Ask a senior colleague, teacher, or coach for guidance navigating work or school. If you think it might help you, consider seeking out a mentor who matches your gender, ethnicity, or sexual orientation. Tip number 5, teach or become a mentor. You'll be surprised at how much you know. We often forget what it's like not to know something. And furthermore, as we become experts in a field or rise to the top of the class, we're conscious enough to realize how much we have yet to learn, which amplifies the sense of fraudulence. Only when we contrast ourselves with true newbies do we gain perspective. So remind yourself how far you've come by nurturing the next generation. Tip number 6, sometimes it's okay not to know what you're doing. After experiencing any big life event like starting a new school or a new job, there's a steep learning curve of adjustment. So rather than hiding, think of yourself as a public amateur or a purposeful imposter, someone who's learning and gaining expertise in the public eye. It's okay to come to the table with nothing to offer as long as you're enthusiastic about learning. Tip number 7, for kids, praise effort. To counteract the mistake of praising traits, as in you're so smart, Praise effort instead. Compliment kids with, "You worked so hard on that," or "You kept at it even when it didn't work out." Tip number 8, build in an expectation of initial failure. Your first draft will suck. Your first rehearsal won't be fit for human ears. My neighbor told her child, "Here's your new scooter. You have to fall off at least 10 times before you get good." Allow yourself similar leeway to stink it up at any new beginning. And finally, tip number 9, keep a little imposter syndrome in your pocket. Stay humble, my friends. A balancing point exists between imposter syndrome and slick, grinning egomania. Authentic modesty keeps you real. So there we have it. 9 things you can do to mitigate the effects of imposter syndrome. And of course, you're not alone. Simply remember the words of Tina Fey, a self-described imposter. She says, "Everyone else is an imposter too." Thanks for listening. If The Savvy Psychologist is useful to you, please show your appreciation by subscribing to the podcast, liking on Facebook, adding me to your Google Plus circles, or emailing a link to someone important in your life. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Ellen Hendrickson. A transcript of the podcast and references for the studies I mention are always available on quickanddirtytips.com/savvy-psychologist. Of course, The Savvy Psychologist is strictly for informational purposes and doesn't substitute for psychiatric care or psychotherapy by a licensed professional. Any names have been changed and details altered to protect privacy. Thanks for listening, and see you next week for a happier, healthier mind.